Alright, welcome back. So, Jim was taking a little bit, but we have the map vetoes done. Let's get into the game. It is going to be on Vani Research Station first, and it is a PvZ. So, I know so far the series have not been that great. Kelzer versus Dark in particular didn't live up to what limited hype I gave it. Again, it wasn't going to be like, oh my god, Foreigner versus Korean match of the century, but I really thought Kelzer was going to have a pretty decent macro game, and then just Dark had other plans. But PvZ, okay, that's another whole mess, but we'll get into that after this. Ooh, Jim, what are you doing? In the bottom position on Vani Research Station, it is the blue Zerg Dark. And in the top position, as the red Protoss, he is Jim, and he was cheesing. He had some serious cheese in him versus Terran, and apparently it's not so different versus Zerg. The difference for me is that while PvT, I guess, also got like a bit of a nerf to the Protoss in terms of like their adept range, shade range vision, I didn't think it really changed all that much. It wasn't like, oh my god, what is Protoss gonna do against Terran now? But he did cheese anyway. For versus Zerg, I am totally on board with crying for the Protoss. Just literally being like, oh, poor baby. And I would totally believe every single time we saw Protoss versus Zerg, the Protoss would try and cheese or all-in of some sort. So when I think of that, though, I do think hidden tech on the map, or, you know, 8 gateway all-ins, 7 gateway, like that type of thing. Not proxy 4-gate, which is something that we saw people try and do in the beginning of Legacy of the Void, you know, that time where everyone tries to cheese as first and foremost. It didn't work. It didn't work. It even stopped working against people who had like 3 after 4 pool, because that was also something the Zergs were trying to experiment with to see if they could pull off. They technically can sometimes. It's kind of like it wasn't hard to the swarm, but the point is, it just wouldn't work. Like, there'd be too many drones, there'd be too many minerals to build spine crawlers once the spawning pool finished, even if it was the latest spawning pool possible, and this is not even that greedy. Dark has a spawning pool finishing up very soon. Now, he won't be able to scout this for some time. You know, you do want to hide the gateways, try and get as much out of this build as you possibly can, because otherwise it's just not going to be a lot. Okay, just make that very clear. So if this actually wins, I will, you know, bite my tongue and whatnot, but it just so far has not been the winning cheese for the Protoss. I guess when you think about what the cheese was in the heart of the swarm, the proxy double gates, that also wasn't winning too much, but occasionally would, so I don't know, maybe this will be so much of a surprise. I mean, Jim really is getting the latest possible scout on his build, which is really nice. I mean, these lings actually look for something like a proxy pylon. Funnily enough, if you're gonna bother looking on Vani, you should bother looking behind the bushes, but oh well. Overlord's finally going to be going there, but too late. Hatchery has to be cancelled, so a bit of a waste of minerals. The spine collars have got to be going down in the natural, actually, so Dark might be willing to give up his main base, which, if he does that, he's going to lose a spawning pool, and that's pretty dangerous. Now, the most dangerous thing about this is the Zealots killing the spine crawlers, but also getting in mineral lines while the Lings try and kill them. I like this move with the Lings. They're going to distract maybe a couple of the reinforcements. They're not going to get the pylon, which would be like the best, but it's not going to happen. The spine crawlers were trying to be protected by the drones, now going to be protected by the Lings. Is this going to be enough, though? He actually just cancels that one right off the bat. This one's going to survive, though, and so far, Dark has only lost 3 drones. That spine crawler is a lot of damage, and drone, like 20 drones is still enough to really pump out a lot of Lings. So that's like the there's so many reasons why having more drones in Legacy of the Void to start things off makes it better against cheeses. Now, you always have to argue that the cheese should also be stronger because they have more probe and more economy, but it doesn't quite work out that way. As much as I was really hoping it would, so that cheese still would be totally viable, we've had to adapt to bigger and better cheeses like the 3-Rax Reaper. So, this has been what you could call a kind of an easy hold. I mean, it was a little worrying because it was scouted so late and suddenly you had like 5 Zealots in your base and you're like, oh my god. But Dark did a very excellent job holding. You know, the spine crawl, the natural, the drones hold positioning to buy the little extra time for the Lings. It was all pretty perfect. And Jim has just got no luck. There's nothing back at home. You know, with a cannon rush, at least you can get a cannon back at home. Not gonna happen here. And that's going to be game. It is. I would say again, back in the day, you could do that thing where you get like 20 Marines or 8 Zealots and be like surprised when they thought you were trying to macro out of it. I don't think that'll work. All the probes go down. Spinecrawler holds the top position. Lings can stop it from being attacked exactly like that, and that's just... Jim's out of luck. Jesus ain't working. Queen almost went down. A little worrying. GG. There you go. And Dark will take game number 1. Not too surprising, but definitely surprising to see the 4-gate come back. Gotta try something. Gotta try something. So, he might try another really early all-in, because Jim has been doing 1 base. I just don't know if that's really the way to go. I seriously think that 1 base, especially versus Zerg, I guess versus Terran it did work once or twice. But versus Zerg, just... I actually can't think of a 1 base build that works. Even a cannon rush usually turns into a Zerg-favored game. 1 base Dark Shrine, nope, that doesn't work. No. I really think it's gonna be 2 base. 2 base and hope they don't scout, basically. Or 2 base and hope they reach way too fast to Hydras. Which I think is going to be, if you're on ladder right now as the Protoss player, and you're like, what the fuck do I do? I swear to God. I think your best bet is just to hope that Zergs are like too much on Hydras, and go for like Charge Lot Storm, which I've been seeing a lot of people experiment with. I don't think it can actually last and hold up in terms of like macro development. But 2 base Storm, Archon, Charge, what have you, has been something Protosses are experimenting with. And in terms of the all-in, has been working. Zergs are, they gotta learn that they can't just go to Hydras, because that's what everyone has been gunning for. The next map is going to be Ekko. Ekko. And man, I don't know what Jim's gonna do, because here's the thing, like, you know, I could give Jim a ton of crap for being cheesy, and I'm sure all of you are already doing that, and whatever. But even if he was trying to be, like, a well-adjusted macro Protoss, it looks borderline impossible. Like, unless you can, get the Zerg to, again, probably go too fast to Hydras, to maybe over-dedicate to a defense, and then get to what is, like, Colossus... you know, with enough fodder on the ground. Unless you can get there, Protoss just looks like they're gonna flounder for quite a while. But once they're at Colossus, they're actually pretty good, which is why the Colossus buff is still kind of questionable. But anyways, talk more about that later. It is game number 2, and we're on Ekko. In the top left, up 1, he is the red Zerg Dark. In the bottom right is the blue Protoss. He is Jim. Thank you to the Chosen One NL for the 21-month resub. Base Trade, who are you guys? What is this game? Who am I? Well, we are StarCraft 2 casters. This game is StarCraft, and you are the Chosen One. You would have figured that one out. Thanks for resubbing. League of LOL? Actually, I haven't seen that. That's a pretty good one. So, Jim goes for the complete opposite of a 4-gate proxy, but this only makes me even more suspicious that he's going to end up doing an all-in from this. You get this big boost from going for a Nexus first, and that's great as long as you don't die to some type of Zerg cheese. And I think what we've been seeing more often from, especially from the, I guess called Asian Protosses, so Chinese and Korean Protosses, have been 2 base all-ins. So, that's a very small sample size, so I don't want to paint like too broad of a brush here, but, you know, what we saw in the IEM qualifiers was like 1 or 2 Protosses, and then, you know, now Jim. So they're kind of... We saw Mana as well, and he was doing some good macro games, and even he got into a macro game by doing pressure earlier, you know, like a cannon rush, or he did like a 2 base kind of all lane that just macro down to a 3rd base. That's a messed up Bly, but the point is, like, you gotta do some aggression. And that seems to be what the Protosses and Terrans have united in their, you know, collective thinking, is that even though the Zerg economy hasn't changed or anything like that, suddenly it's been okay, well you do your thing and I'll do my thing, and then we probably end up on okay footing to, oh my god, you gotta like kill the Zerg like right off the bat, you got a 3x Reaper, you got a 4-gate, or you're gonna die to Hydras, dear god. I'm actually suspicious if Hydra's really that bad versus Terran, but I think for Protoss, it's a legitimate fear. This probe's gonna not only block at their base, but also scout if it's even gonna be taken. We can talk a little about Jim, because he is the one that's kind of, I think, the onus is on him to do something, but Dark was cheesing Kelzer, and to see him go for like 40 lings at a time that Jim wouldn't expect might not be out of the question. I don't think he has to, though. Again, I think he just has to defend and do it, like, well, and Dark would win this regardless of the recent patch or balance or whatever, because Dark is just really good, and unfortunately Jim has not had the same year. Well, Twilight Council is down. We'll see if that is going into charge High Templar, like I was talking about, or maybe it's just a resonating waves, because that Adepts were not changed other than their vision of their shade, so they can't get the automatic scout down. They have to either have an observer up front or just take a little bit more of a chance, of a risk if they shade through. I think this should just be like, well actually I'll hold off. Whatever it is, a War Prism obviously. Okay, so it is going to be Resonating Glaives, Adept with the War Prism, maybe 6 more Gateways, and then probably, I want to say, followed up by High Templars, because again, that just seems to be the way that the Protoss have been all experimenting, like, okay guys, what do we got, what do we got? Colossus aren't going to be able to stand up enough in the early game, because they're going to be the one unit we can buy. That ain't it. Storms would be a little bit better, but even they have their own problems. The Templars have tons of problems, all drug related. Just kidding. But there's the 4 more Gateways, and I totally called it. We've also seen a variation of this with Charge, as I was talking about, but also Stargate Opener to get rid of the Overlords from scouting, which is interesting. Thank you to Kikai, it looks more complicated than it is, for the 8-month resub. Overlords are getting secondary scouts, tertiary scouts, whatever the 4th scout is called. Overlord even gets a couple lings in here to for sure scout, and Dark knows everything. I really think the biggest weakness that Dark could have had, that some other Zergs are having, would be just instantly going to Hydras, or stick on Lings for way too long, like either one. But he's going to respond with Roachborn, which I think is going to be perfect against the Adept All-In. This has not really changed as far as the defense from patch to patch, and I'm a little disappointed to see a Dark Shrine. I think this was too obvious in the last patch. I think in this state of the game, because it's something to do with the patch of Dark Templars, we're not going to see blink DTs, but even in the state of the game, I think it's even worse. Like, I really don't think the Dark Templar are going to follow up with much. But we'll see. Gotta give Jim a little bit of credit here, a little bit of chance. Even if I don't think he really has one. Warp is going to open a lot of Adepts. Dark is at 42 drones, which is not a powerhouse economy. And if he loses 20, that is going to be devastating, but he should have cut early enough to have enough army that Jim really doesn't get to do a lot of damage. And if he does do any damage to the mineral lines, it's only 1 mineral line, and he loses all the Adepts almost instantly for it. So this is a bit of a nerf when you are depending entirely on Adepts, and absolutely their vision is a nerf. Not just a new headache for Protoss to deal with. Counterattack on the 3rd base, really like this. I mean, I like the attempt for Jim to try and expand from this aggression. It seems to be the way to do things, but I just, I don't know if it's going to work. Because what's going to happen is, okay, Dark realizes, okay, so 3rd base down, the Adepts are still a problem, but I think I have enough to deal with it. I'm going to drone. I'm going to get to Hydras with this lair. And I'm not sure that, especially because he went for a Dark Templar, Dark Shrine after, that Jim's going to have the defenses against a Hydra push. But we'll see. Warp Prism still carrying those Adepts. No Dark Templars warped in yet. No, Shrine did finish. It did. Adepts killed over here, which is a bit of a waste, I would say. And Dark is reaching up to 70 drones almost, and getting that +1 attack. Now, the rocks are broken down here. Okay, good. You need to remember that about the map. And there is only one point of contention. Unless, well, actually Dark might break down the rock. So the point is, you're only able to focus on one part of the map that's already a bit better for your defenses. But a lot of the times, what we would see on Ekko is, okay, I only have to deal with one little area here, but your armies are split between 2 areas, or your photon cannons are split between two areas, and it just wouldn't be enough defense on one or the other's side, and the Zerg would push through. Oh, wrong button. To extra zoom out. Adepts do decide to transfer through, but I gotta remind you guys, like, this is all increasing the chances that the Adepts die, and a counterattack does a lot of damage. The DTs are warped in, they're going straight for that Spore Crawler, it goes down, and the Dark Templar are actually starting to work here. He actually got a 5th in here? I don't know how that happened. Overseers are on the way, but the units are still dealing with the Adepts, so the third base is gonna go down. But Dark, he got up to 60 plus drones. He only lost 15, maybe a couple more here. That's good damage by the Protoss. But is it enough? I'm not sure yet. 49 drones, third base is going to be the fourth base, I suppose, now. DT's actually getting in and killed like 6 more drones right off the bat. That's pretty impressive because 3 of them still live. And this game might be a good one for Jim. Now, Dark is still up 30 supply, and he does have that army advantage from killing so many Adepts, so he should try and counterattack. But he doesn't have the Hydras, so it's not as scary as it could be. Roaches and Ravagers, though, in great numbers, is always going to be scary. Nothing changed about that. But Jim's trying to get the Force Field, he's trying to get Photon Overcharge, he's trying to get more Mortals, and I think he could have a defense against this. But as long as Dark doesn't take any more damage on his side of the map, and he eventually gets to either a bigger army or Hydras, obviously, he could probably break through. Looks like Jim is having a lot of lag. There's so many barcodes, actually. I thought that was referee for a second. I am solo casting today, and Rifkin will be solo casting later. Here comes the defense, do or die. I don't know if Dark can actually push through here, but he has a lot of faith in his numbers and his Ravagers, I do believe. Photon Overcharge is going to be a powerful tool. Second Immortal is almost on the way out, and it will have, I think it'll be able to jump with the rest of the army. It's a little bit scary, the Hydra mission granted by those Overseers. Warp Prism's still alive, but the Queens are going to be able to take care of it. Oh, bad move right there. Good move by Dark, though. That's what you're cheering for, I suppose. Blink +1 almost on 2, and Dark, I still want to push in. He doesn't have a 40 army supply lead. His armies don't look that big, but he does still have those Corrosive Biles and only 2 Immortals to chunk through all those Roaches. Photon Overcharges are all done. All gone. Legend 4 is at best going to add some DPS, but a third Immortal is about to join the fray. And Dark is still not transitioning to Hydras, but he's looking at the game right here, right now. Force Fields break, a couple more go down in the last attempt, but the Immortals starting to go down as their barriers break. That second Immortal goes down, the third Immortal will follow soon, and Jim is not able to hold on the defense. GG. Dark takes game number 2 and the 2-0 in this series. Again, there wasn't much else that Jim could do for defensive positioning, because he could try and hole up in his third base, but then it becomes an issue of, well, Dark would just try and attack in your natural, and then you have to go down a ramp. So it's always been a very complicated defense point on Ekko. Sometimes it looks better for the defender, sometimes it looks good for the attacker. But of course, a lot of that was also just the fact that Jim dedicated a lot to Adept attacks that didn't quite do enough damage to warrant losing 15 plus Adepts, 20 plus Adepts. Oh, that old Protoss problem. Next best of 3 is going to be Dark versus Byun. And once again, going to a commercial break while they get the vetoes done. See you soon.